Good news, Maelstrom News fans. According to the state-owned South Korean media Yonhap agency, the United States has ceased almost all funding to anti-North Korean groups in South Korea. This has happened apparently because of a financial downturn within the U.S. government. However, Yonhap does also say that one of the things that may have led to the decision of the U.S. to cease almost all funding of anti-North Korean groups in South Korea may have been that funding for the anti-North Korean groups by the South Korean government has not been kept up. Like, they're saying that the U.S. might feel that South Korea has not been funding enough of them themselves, and that may have been a contributing factor into deciding to cease funding them themselves. Now, some of the biggest hit organizations by this has been the North Korea Intellectual Solidarity Group and North Korean Radio Reform. Now, they've said that they've lost about $5 million. That's right. $5 million of taxpayer money has gone to groups within South Korea just for the purpose of what I believe and what many others believe to be just to slander the North and to pretend to be interested in the people of North Korea when really they're just there to attack it. Now, they openly admit that they actually get a lot of their money from the National Endowment for Democracy, which you'll recall is run by the U.S. State Department. And that same organization is all over the world interfering in democratically elected governments. For example, the National Endowment for Democracy is a pretty big force in Venezuela in trying to topple the democratically elected government of Nicolas Maduro. And it's also in Cuba and other Latin American countries. So you can see that when they try to say that they're not controlled by the U.S., they're almost literally funded by the U.S. State Department. I mean, it's pretty clear to a lot of people that they're literally imperialist puppets. Now, in that same statement by the organization saying that they've lost this $5 million, they've also called upon the South Korean government to step up and fill the funding gap that has been left by the American taxpayer. Now, this defunding has taken place within the last couple weeks. It wasn't really announced until about now, until a few days ago. I do notice, however, it appears to be just a coincidence that with this withdrawal of funding for anti-North Korean groups, NKNews.org just happened to have released their new pay service, where you have to give them money to get access to certain content on their blog. That cost anywhere from $1,000 to $1,200 a year. I frankly could not imagine spending $1,000 a year to read a blog. It's unfathomable to me to spend $1,000 a year to read an online blog. I don't know if the U.S. government was funding NKNews.org. I think it probably was, but again, no evidence. I just think the timing of their new subscription service is awfully strange given the recent withdrawal of U.S. funding to anti-North Korean groups. With all of this, we can now see the true class nature, the true strive to interfere in the affairs of the DPRK are coming from the South Korean government and the imperialists in the U.S. The regular working class and poor people in South Korea aren't particularly interested in interfering with the affairs of the North Korean government. So what we can see is this real driving force for war between the two nations, and they are trying to push it. It's coming from the ruling elites of both South Korea and particularly the United States. So when we take a step back and we actually look at what's happened here, we can see that this money, although coming from the people through taxes, is actually being driven forward into this position of imperialist expansion into North Korea, is coming from the ruling classes of these two countries, particularly the imperialists in the U.S. What does this tell us? This tells us that the old saying remains true, that the people don't want war. They want to live with, other working class people. The working class people of many countries have the same interests, or relatively the same interests. It's the imperialists who drive us towards war, and particularly one that could be extraordinarily devastating as one with North Korea. But this all leads us back to a saying I heard a while ago that's very relevant here. No war between nations. No peace between classes.